Leonard Purvis says that when he took the job as chief of police in Banning, California in 2007, the department was a mess.
I saw everything from officers that were having sex on duty. Some of them were having sex with prostitutes. Others were engaged in insurance fraud. There was one officer who had beat up his girlfriend on duty in uniform.
Purvis fired 10 of the 41 officers working for him. But then he started hearing something strange about a new department forming in a town about 200 miles north.
I would just hear every once in a while that, oh, so-and-so went up to McFarland. Oh, this other person went up to McFarland. And for me, it was disgusting.
What Purvis saw wasn't a blip. Officers who get fired from one job can get back on the street because the system puts them back on the street.
For a long time, criminologists and legal scholars have known that there are some police officers who, when they get fired for engaging in misconduct, ultimately land another job in law enforcement agencies.
Ben Grunwald is the co-author of the first comprehensive study on the topic.
We discovered that in Florida, they track information on the full-time employment stints of all law enforcement officers in the state of Florida. And when we realized that, we realized this was the first opportunity to study systematically this phenomenon of wandering officers.
Grunwald and his team looked at 30 years' worth of data on 98,000 cops. Each year, around 1,100 cops are on the street in Florida after being fired for misconduct or quitting because of disciplinary actions.
One potential situation in which an agency is much more likely to hire a wandering officer is when they suddenly have a much higher demand.
And that's what happened in McFarland. They had a lot of crime and decided to stop depending on neighboring towns for law enforcement. So they needed a lot of officers and didn't have a lot of money.
A police department that's strapped for cash may have two different candidates applying for the same job. One really great with more experience and thus probably going to have a higher salary, and one not so great with less experience and is a wandering officer.
McFarland offered a starting salary of only $20 an hour.
Unfortunately, when you're in that situation, it's just, if I don't ask, I don't know. Plausible deniability. Well, gee, I didn't know that.
The Banning and McFarland police departments didn't respond to a request for comment. Other cities have been known to actually recruit wandering officers.
Just a couple of weeks ago, we saw an example of a union office in Florida inviting the officers who were fired from several cities for their recorded misconduct during the protests to come down to Florida and take jobs there because they're waiting with open arms.
Only officers who do get second chances don't seem to act all that different when they get them. They're 90% more likely to have formal complaints lodged against them for issues like sexual assault, perjury, and domestic battery. Timothy Lohman was on his second chance in Cleveland after he was deemed unfit by his last boss. Soon after hitting the streets, he shot and killed 12-year-old Tamir Rice. Lohman was never charged with a crime, but he was later fired for failing to disclose his disciplinary record, which a police union is now appealing. His attorneys didn't respond to our request for comment. The Rice family got a $6 million settlement from Cleveland, paid with the city's overall insurance fund, not with the department's money.
Agencies are largely insulated from civil liability for these issues. That might mean that they just don't feel the burn of their mistakes.
Lawmakers from Colorado to New York have proposed changes to how they pay suits, but those changes are local. Without a national fix or a national database to track wanderers, a bad cop can usually find a department somewhere that's willing to take a risk. The system stays intact.